questions. I just want to get a little sense about why we're doing this panel discussion today. And in ancient times, music was at the core of social interaction in terms of helping the tribe or the group understand their identity and their sense of purpose together. In today's world, music, in the modern times, has taken on different changes, different meanings. In fact, in the web, in the building of communities, and the largest communities of social interaction, particularly with young people on the web today, music is a huge part of that. MySpace has over 200 million registered members. Facebook has over 24 million. High Five, over 10 million. These social networking sites were formed for people to go and express their who they were and what they were and their various sense of identities. And as part of that, they began sharing, and they shared three things mostly. First was music, second was pictures, and third was video. And a lot of that video and pictures were of musical live events or music videos themselves. So music has been a very key part of how communities have grown up on the web today, some of the largest social interactive sites. And so today, it's interesting, in more recent times, things since the 60s, live musical events have been an interesting phenomenon where community is built with very, very diverse groups of people for hours or a day or a weekend, or depending on the length of a festival, maybe sometimes as long as a week. Back in 1985, there was a large event called Live Aid, which a lot of you may remember. Live Aid was created as a way to sort of make people aware of the poverty that had stricken Ethiopia. They were hoping to raise £1 million. They ended up raising 150 million pounds. Their audience that they were attracted through television was over 1.5 billion people in over 100 countries. And that back then, the population was under 4 billion people. Today, the world's population is somewhere north of 5 billion people. And in the recent times, events like Farm Aid or the G8 protests have drawn huge audiences as a means to share ideas. And music has always had that ability to share ideas and share them virally. In fact, in modern times, events like this and some of the numbers I just mentioned far outweigh other type events of this size and nature, such as religious events or political events, where very, very large segment of the population can be exposed to a sort of idea and a sense of a community for the moment. This weekend, Live Earth will launch their expectation with these musical concerts in the United States and England, hopefully to reach over 2 billion of the world's 5 billion people in over 120 countries. The express purpose of that is to bring to people a sense of community and understanding around their responsibility for taking care of the earth and the environment. And today, this distinguished panel are four individuals who have spent a significant amount of time in their careers or in their personal life sort of working with music and the idea of communicating to people and building community. So I'd like to introduce, first of all, the Sakyong Mipham Rinpoche, who is head of the Nyingma lineage from Tibet. He lives here mostly in the United States, all over the world. He's also head of Shambhala, which is 150 meditation centers around the world. And he has had some very popular music videos on YouTube. Most recently, What About Me? It's had over 70,000 viewings of that music video. And then to my right is BT, Brian Transeau, and BT is known as the father of trance. You're only about 36 or so. It's kind of old to be the father of trance music. But he spent a lifetime in music and doing many things. Can you say a little more about that?
Sure. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. But my career is very sort of multifaceted. I work both in the fields of film. I've composed music for numerous Hollywood films like The Fast and Furious and Monster, and produced many artists like Justin Timberlake and Madonna and Seal. and also made my own artist albums as a composer, and perform all over the world. So I feel really lucky to get to do all the things that I do. As a final thought, many of my peer group also consider me a sort of technologist. I've had an interest in computers and mathematics since I was a kid, and I started a software company 3 years ago to take some of the proprietary methodologies and ideologies I work with in my music and actually congeal them into pieces of software that eventually will become commercially available. So that's a little bit about me and what I do.
And we have Jonas Temple, the CEO and founder of Beatport. Can you tell us a little about that, Jonas? And you're also a DJ as well.
Right. So I'm part of this community of electronic music. I joined a group of people that founded Beatport.com, which, for those of you that may not know it, we like the elevator pitches. We're the iTunes for DJs. And what that means to us is that the DJ culture is looking for a different kind of music organized in a very unique kind of way. And as a background as a DJ and a graphic designer, I joined this group, and we've created what has become, I guess, very fortunately, the largest online community of electronic DJs really in the world. And we're generating now about 2 million unique visitors a month to our website, with about 375,000 DJs around the world that buy music from us on a weekly basis. We were talking about that before we came over, and we're estimating that reaches approximately about 30 million people a week from DJs playing out, and so it's a pretty, I guess, humbling experience when you start to think of it in that scale.
That's great. And we have Theresa Saverio, who is an actor and musician and DJ, who is an early female pioneer. First album came out in 1988. And,
makes me feel old.
And Theresa, could you tell us a little bit about what you were doing in 1988 and what's happening since?
Well, I can't remember. No, I'm kidding. Basically, I started out through a love of music and just decided to get into the studio at a very early stage, and pioneered a couple of different styles of music within drum and bass, and had a deep affinity for classical music, and I've always wanted to discover that, but somehow got mixed up in this wonderful world of electronic music, and used that as a platform, and began DJing, became the first female DJ to actually do that, to play alongside guys in the big room, which was a big no-no, and that was fun. And then moving on through that to just develop and find a way and stumble through this wonderful journey of music, and do many different things, from labels, which I also have with Beatport, artists. I have 2 labels called Improper Talent and Proper Talent. Website. I've just scored my first movie, and so yeah, it's fun. That's a bit about me. That's
great.
Thanks.
And Rinpoche, maybe you could tell us a little bit about it. It's kind of unusual given your background, you know. He's also published 2 best-selling books, Turning the Mind into an Ally and Ruling Your World. And it's also a book of poetry and a marathon runner. First, when do you have the time to make music videos, and what was it that got you to do that in the first place?
I'm not sure if I'm in the right panel here. I think I feel misplaced. But yeah, I grew up in the Buddhist tradition, and I feel like, and in the West, I feel like I'm a bridge. And that's sort of the karmic situation, kind of the luck of the draw in terms of where I'm at. And I've been encouraged by, I think, you know, some of the, in terms of our tradition, like the Dalai Lama and some of the senior teachers, to really provide a way to bring some of the ancient wisdom that we have. And in terms of, I think, basic themes like that are universal, like compassion, courage, self-awareness, especially for a younger generation. And writing the books, I realized to a certain degree you reach sort of a more mature audience. And then the music, I felt like, at least for myself, when I'm listening to music, it sort of, you sort of let down your guard, you open up, and you can transmit a lot of sort of depth and character, and somehow people communicate more. So I was curious, because I write poetry. I don't consider myself a musician as such. So I wrote the poetry, and I did spoken word, and then we added mixed it with electronic music. And I think, you know, it was more, for myself, it was more just to see if there's interest out there right now. And I think before we were talking about how much there's an interest in terms of the time and music, and I think that's why.
What are you hoping to communicate in the spoken word video? Like, what about me, for example?
Well, I mean, I think in this one, the song it's labeled "What About Me," so people think it's about them. And then halfway through the video, it starts out black and white and basically turns to color. And I say, you're really not going to be happy if you're self-obsessed, if you're thinking about yourself all the time. And we live in a culture where it is everyone is driven to think about themselves. And basically, I'm saying, if we just change the attitude and say, what about you? And think about compassion. How do you actually begin to make that shift? And I think, especially young people, it's about them and how do you give them confidence, but then to be more aware of their environment and who they're with. And that's going to influence family, it's going to influence their life, business, socially. And then the video kind of changes from that point of view. And I felt like that was just a very simple theme and message that, it could be more universal.
That's great. And you, BT? Why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? My subversive mission, honestly, is really to impart some sense of light and humanity and hopefulness into the audience that I reach. And I feel really lucky to have a community of people, speaking of community, that are, I just have a really interesting group of people that support what I do creatively. A lot of them are themselves creators, content creators, and are interested in technology and interested in music and art, so I'm blessed that I get to go and play all over the world. We were talking about it before. 2 weeks ago, I was singing for 104,000 people in Budapest, and
it's very unusual for Budapest too, right?
it really is, honestly. It really is. And speak of a humbling experience, that'll knock you in your place really fast. But what an amazing experience. And I just feel this incredible sense of responsibility to impart something that has a tremendous amount of integrity and intent and intention behind it, because especially in the medium of electronic music, you're reaching people quite frequently in a very susceptible state, and in a state, a group brain state, where people are there listening to music that's very repetitive and with lights that are synchronous to that music, and so that's
and they share this state, and in this, do you sense a sense of community that builds? I mean, when it starts, there's not really a community. It's just 100,000 people who probably don't know the other 95 or 99,000 people or 99.9%. What happens?
Well, that's one of the amazing things, honestly, is to watch that happen, and that does happen, and you see people. My fan base has supported me, my sort of diehards, I call them, for 15 years, and going, and to see that group of people, many of whom, I know really well, and who met on some website where they were talking about my music and are now married and have children, and to hear those kind of stories is really incredible. I think music is a universal language, and music is a language that transcends all cultural boundaries, all boundaries of sex and race, and all of it, and it's also our most ancient language. We were talking about this before. Many would argue that mathematics is our most ancient language, and music is just express mathematics. That's all it is, and it's a way that we can communicate, and I just feel it's an amazing way to create community, and it's an amazing way to share ideas, and so I feel an incredible amount of responsibility to do something that's altruistic.
Yeah, Theresa, have you had that experience in your career? Of seeing how people get together and change things, and what about yourself? What about your own personal experience?
I think that everything that Brian says is true, and everybody's perspective is their journey that they've been on is really interesting. We all have common stories that for example, when I first started, it was, I'm really revealing my age here, but 1988 was one of the first parties I actually went to, and saw a DJ, and went into the ladies' room, and there were these six girls dancing in a row, 6 black girls dancing in a row, and I was the only white girl in the ladies' room. Now, back in London in 1988, just to give you an idea of what it was like, was that race didn't really mix didn't happen. You'd go to either a club of that type of music or club. And the beautiful thing about electronic music is it pushed people together because no one cared about anything else. It wasn't about, you know, the guy you were going to meet or the girl you were going to meet or how you looked. It was about just loving this sound, and something new that we were discovering that was like a secret was so cool. And I remember these girls grabbing me and dancing with me in a circle, and I was just like, oh, thank God, this is just awesome. And it was just great. It was really amazing. But also at the same time, a million kids that I know, not personally, but a lot of people through MySpace, a lot of dysfunctional children, or people that have had troubled teenage lives, or people like me who were just generally a freak. I was brought up in a convent and a very introverted child. And the first thing I ever heard and studied was Beethoven. And the first pop song I heard was Smells Like Teen Spirit. So I was late in the game. And it was like, you know, I couldn't communicate. I was very shy. And I walked into a field, and the party that it was called Energy. And there was, I think, over 50,000 people at this event. And I was just like, I'm home. This is it. This is where I belong. And this is my religion. And that's my God, the DJ. And it was just... And I mean that metaphorically, but it really changed my life. It gave me a sense of purpose. And I think one of the things I was saying before is that for me, it saved me in every way you could possibly be saved as a person. And why I continue to do it to this day is because it is the only thing that's always been there for me solidly. And, you know, stumbling through, not knowing anything, none of us know anything. And the more I think I know, the less I actually know. And so it's just a beautiful gift of self-discovery. And the beautiful thing is, because I've had, luckily, a lot of success at it, now I'm able to pass that on to, you know, what I call my family, which is the kids I sign through MySpace, you know, new artists, and the joy of seeing, like, my baby brother doing the same thing I'm doing, and I'm dragging him through the same process I went through, kicking and screaming, and it's just great, you know, it's a wonderful thing, and every kid can do it, and every kid I know wants to do it, so it's really powerful. That's why I love it, you know.
And Jonas, at Beatport, I mean, and even before when you're DJing, I mean, first of all, from personal experience, you see community get formed when you're in a nightclub doing what you're doing, and then your whole community on the web that show up every month, the 2 million people that show up every month, this is what they care about. Right. How does identity get transferred? What ideas happen that create community?
That's I guess that's the magic question. I mean, for us, it's been a process of. My dad had this crazy saying, and I never understood it probably until maybe a couple years ago. And he'd say, "Take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth." And just basically stop talking and listening, and start listening to people. And when you really listen to your community, it's much easier to understand how they want to. I guess, be communicated with. And for us, over the last 4 years, we've gone from pushing into them, into their worlds, and now actually it's the other way, and they are taking us into their worlds. So the transition has been quite spectacular, and it's really been the success of our community, is that we've I guess, shut up and started to listen and really become one with I don't want to call it a movement, but it's always kind of a movement. I mean,
well, it's kind of cool. It's underground. I mean, all of you, including you, Rinpoche, are involved in electronic music, and so it's all sort of an underground thing, right? I mean, it's always been that way, and your people, you've got to maintain that sort of sense. At the same time, it's huge. I mean, you have so many people coming to your website every month, Jonas. I mean, right. I mean, is there a shared sense of identity about what they are doing, or who they are?
Yeah, there is, and it happens in the most amazing ways, and you shared some of this earlier. And you know, for us as a retailer, I guess you have a certain shyness about scale because you don't want to be perceived as monopolistic or anything like that. But we come at this in a very holistic way, and we try to always give back at any time more than we try to take. So we're investing in parties, literally trying to help people be DJs. So we're, it's an equality that we're trying to create within the community, and I believe that there's an identity that people are finding with themselves within the organization, and it actually started for us. I watched the TV show, and TV sometimes is blasé, but this particular thing really inspired me, and it was late at night, and I was extremely tired, and we were chasing a deadline, And there was a show about the late Bear Bryant, and he was talking about coaching, and he said forever he was afraid of losing control of his playbook. And what he realized was over time he didn't have to have that insecurity, because it didn't matter if anybody knew how to do it. It was whether they could do it as good as he could.
Got it.
And so it erased his insecurity about it, and he became a more comfortable leader, and he was more open about things. And it translated for me into building this company with my friends, and I set them all down, and we had this very pure day of saying, you know, rare in life do any of us get the opportunity to be the world's greatest at something. I mean, I'll never be the best graphic designer, I'll never be the fastest runner or climb, you know, probably never scale Everest. But we had the opportunity to be the greatest at this, and so we took that to heart, and it really translates through every person in the company. And I think that personalization within the organization comes out into the community. That people protect Beatport because we try to protect ourselves and we try to protect them, and I mean that in a sharing kind of way.
Got it. But what about you, BT, in your experience? I mean, Theresa talked about belonging. She goes into this club coming from, you know, kind of a different life, you know, getting in there, and she belongs. She says, this is for me. What happens to you? I mean, when you see kids come into your thing and you've got 100,000 people out there sharing something, is it a sense of belonging that they're looking for?
Absolutely.
And what if they're belonging? What are they belonging to?
Well, you know, this gets into this kind of, and something we sort of discussed prior to this sort of anthropological idea of a tribe, you know, and music's original function in society, and that it's this sort of connective tissue. This means this catalyst for communication, and I think that's an interesting idea. You know, what is it that people are ascribing to belong to? And I think that's many things. You know, a common experience, a common viewpoint, a similar way of looking at the world. You know, and you see that happen in large numbers in these groups and have a lasting impact too. One of the things I love about electronic music, and I find it really cool that we're sitting here talking about electronic music because I'm very personally, emotionally invested in it, is, and something that I think about it too, is some of my heroes, guys like Debussy or Stravinsky, Penderecki, some of the 20th century composers that I studied a lot growing up. I know that these men and women would be involved in electronic music today because, you know, there was a real stigma against electronic music for many years. You know, after the movements really began with guys like Cage and Xenakis and these sort of guys, that electronic music was something that created itself. And what I realize now, after participating in it for so many years and being interested in it for so long, is that electronic music actually represents this sort of infinite sonic palette, and they're just other colors to paint with.
But is there meaning in your music? And I want to ask all of you, particularly with what you're trying to, because you're starting with meaning first, and because we talk, there's a lot of music out there that is sort of very negative in terms of its social value. There's a lot of it that is sort of void, vacuous of what's happening, and yet, you know, music, it's there to create community. We can all go and share a sort of, you know, space together, but is there something we can take away from it that's something we believe in? Some new idea that we can walk away about ourselves or about the place that we live in or the way the world should be. I mean, the plan for Live Earth is to have people not just think of themselves as individuals and, hey, it's easy for me just to throw this in the trash. Because I'm a citizen of the world, I need to take care of this. The goal is to transmit that idea this weekend to 2 billion people.
Absolutely.
Do you guys look to do that in what you've done in your professions?
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things is about that is this idea of imparting something of great meaning and value. I think the most significant things that can be imparted are simple and ancient too. And my interest in indigenous music and what I love so much about what you're doing is using this idea of ancient teachings in music that are simple, you know, about compassion, about respect for humanity, about respect for each other's differences. And if you listen to my music, and even, you know, a song that would go on the radio like "Simply Being Loved," it's a very mantra-based piece of music that being loved by someone, and self-love is
Now, he's
what it's
stealing
about,
from you, I
know?
think, if he's going
It's
out.
okay.
We're both talking to the same place, I think.
I mean, there's a lot of thievery in music too, right? So what about what you're doing with your message? I mean, in your music videos. I mean, 70,000 kids have gone to see, someone who hasn't got a record deal. What's up?
Nothing. I'm just here. I think the main thing is, like, a lot of times we talk about in kind of meditation, in the meditation tradition we talk about, if you actually want to change your behavior, first you have to hear, then you have to think about it, and then action comes. So somehow you're going to have to hear what to do. So if the notion of compassion comes up, and I'm thinking, if some kid is in some club, and instead of hearing about anger or getting back at the world, they hear about compassion or something like that. It puts that in their mind, and they think about it, and then from there, some kind of action is going to happen. But I think in our world right now, we always demand someone else do something immediately, be compassionate, be loving. And the thing is that you just can't expect humanity instantly to do that. There has to be a process of thinking about it, contemplating. We have to convince ourselves. And music is a kind of a portal in terms of people's lives where they feel relaxed. And then if you're able to just say, here are universal principles. Everybody basically agrees with these things. And, I'm, as you mentioned, traveling. And I mean, when I was in Tibet, this recent times, a few years ago, no one had cell phones, and now everyone has cell phones. And so you go to a big ceremony, and there's lots of, Tibetans and monks and nuns, and everyone, has a cell phone like this, and the other hand is doing this, which is half of this. So they're, this is the traditional greeting, and they have the cell phone in the other ear. And it's like, this culture is now permeating the entire world. Mount Everest too, it's everywhere. So this is we're sort of at the epicenter of, like, well, where do we want to take this? Do we just want to mindlessly put things out there, or do we want to sort of direct it, or at least help it, or have the inspiration? So that was my, it's like, it was meaning, but I felt like for myself, I enjoy music, and also the effect it has. And I think music can have a way of kind of having a moment of self-reflectiveness that can mature an individual. So, I think it's...
Well, it changes perception, right? Because we receive ideas in a certain state, but music can change our state of perception. I mean, so, right?
That's something that, for me, I think the best way is by example. Until you meet people who show you things, you can be stumbling along, like, not, and then you'll just meet someone and you'll be inspired by them. And that's the great thing about, people who are really doing great things with concerts and stuff like that, because when you go to a concert, I don't know, I go away, I'm breathless, blown away by that person. It's that whole feeling. But for me, I remember when I started DJing, there was a club called Astoria, which actually where we first met 15, 10, 11, 12 years ago, around there. And I was in the back room, and the promoter came up to me and goes, "Oh, how'd you like it?" And I was like, "Well, it's crap, I want to be in there, where the boys play." To this day, because I was the first girl to ever play the main room, so many female girls, DJs, tell me through MySpace emails, I did this because, and I didn't even do that I just did it because I wanted to get in that room. I didn't know what was going to happen. Yes, it's powerful. Yes, everything you do is affecting. Brian was saying earlier that you have an intense responsibility because you really don't know you're affecting people until you see it. And one of the things that I love about the media now is that you can see what the impact is. I've had pilots who are in the war, telling me that they listen to a record before they jump and do all kinds of things. And, it's really humbling, because no matter how bad your day is, you read something like that and you're just like, wow. And so you do impact, and I think the best way is through example, by doing shows. And, if I see someone doing something amazing, I don't know, I want to emulate it. I'm just like, how cool would it be to be, to actually really to give a damn, to do something great now that you've achieved something and you're peaceful enough in yourself to do good stuff for other people. So for me, absolutely, that's a yes, and it does change things.
You said earlier that you walked into the room, there's 50,000 people at this event. Yeah, big room, 50,000 people in there, and you said, this is for me. Yeah. So something about yourself changed. You got an idea about yourself that changed.
That's why I don't think the question is, can we change? It's, it's how quickly and when, now, because it's not, yes, we can change. It's a revolution. And it's happening right under our noses. And this is the right time because the media is correct and everything's right. So we really, as artists, have a chance to really get out there and say what we want to say. And everyone's a grain of sand, right? So we can all do it, you know? And so for me, it changed my whole world in such a positive way because I could have taken a left turn down negative road and instead turned my energy that I was bringing with me into something truly positive. So if the last thing I do on this planet before I die is encourage, whether it's one person or 1,000 people, to get obsessed about something that's truly good for them, then I think that's a great thing, you know?
So Jonas, are you selling music to people that want to change the world? Is that what these DJs are all about?
Little cowboys.
Yeah, you know, I would like to think that these people have ambitions. I mean, there's a culture about being a DJ that's a performance. And to be fair, it's not rock and roll. It's not composing.
It's about getting into a shared state, right? It's about getting people sort of moving in a certain way you want them to move.
It's almost more like telling a story, to be honest with you. I think a good DJ tells a good story.
Okay.
And it's just kind of, it starts a little somewhere, and then it kind of goes somewhere, and then it softens up, and then it always finishes in this like fireworks show, you know, like bam.
Did you see people literally, I mean, it's a group of people who don't know each other. What happens in the process?
I mean,
if you tell your story
people have a
well.
natural, like this, people have a natural personal space.
Yeah.
You know, in some cultures, the personal space is a little closer, but, you know, generally people just don't like to be rubbing on each other. They don't really know each other.
Right.
In a nightclub environment, when that energy and that, it really breaks down those barriers. And when the music is right and everything is happening, concert, anywhere, I guess it could be in a street performance.
Yeah.
Those barriers come down, and I agree with you. It becomes a very tribal mentality that we join together to experience this. We don't know why. It's just happening.
Right.
And when you're the DJ, and it's a very personal moment.
See, I wonder if it's sort of replaced some of the tribal things. You know, when I was in Bhutan recently, we were in this valley called Punakha, and we had some traditional dancers come out and do their traditional dance. And I said, wow, that was really great. You know, do you do that often? They said, no, we don't do it very much. We just do it for the tourists. You know, so you can see this is something they had a great time doing, but they don't do it very much anymore in their lives. Is that something that's missing the culture, or are you guys trying to maybe fill that void? You think, BT?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that these things, you know, if you start talking about things like genetic memory and our experience of music and its actual physiological effect on us, these are things that are imprinted actually into our genes, the way that we experience organized sound, you know, and so I think that music in its current state, I'd like to think that responsible performers are filling that sort of void, you know, and it's just, I love this idea of what you're talking about the physiological effect of music. It's something, I was talking about it before we came up here, that I've done years and years of research on, and especially on the idea of a common brain state, which happens in indigenous cultures when a shaman stands and beats a drum at a certain number of wave cycles per second, and his apprentice fans the fire at a certain number of wave cycles per second. The group, depending on the individual, entrains into a related brain state, and this isn't. This is a very real, proven phenomenon, and so because the nature of what we do in a performance context is repetitive, that's happening there too.
Interesting.
That's why we call it trance.
Right, exactly.
Well, you know, we've had you guys have all traveled the world and done these things, and to be honest, it's kind of new for me. In the last few years, I've traveled a lot, and I've seen some cultures that really just blow my mind. And I have to share an experience about Berlin, because I think Berlin right now is a very passionate part of the world, and it's an artist community, and there's musicians, and it's just amazing what's happening there.
Yeah, it is amazing.
And it's been always this phenomenon city that has so much responsibility around music and art over the centuries. And
Are there any new ideas coming out of Berlin that people live? I mean,
I think to complete the thought, the experience I had was going to, and I heard a new kind of music, and at that time it was called click tech, and more popular now it's called minimal techno. And I really think the idea of this music is to really have a sensory deprivation. So the monotonism, the mathematics of boom, boom, and predictability, and then just every now and then throw in this little I don't know, widget of a sound. And for us, not being used to it, it was really hard to adapt. But what happened was this collective thing started happening in the room, and by the end of the night, we were like, wow, this is the most amazing thing ever, because everything that we thought about the experience, all of our preconceived notions in one night had been reprogrammed into, we just kind of fell into the groove. And I think that music has this ability, and I don't know if it changes the world, I don't really know. It seems to unite people during those states, and it has to happen in the right environments, in the right temperatures. It seems like heat is involved in to get it all right, and
chemical reaction.
And it is, and
Textual, like, you know.
and in the right environments, we see amazing thing. And as DJs and when you write a song, you know you're doing these things, and there's, in electronic music, there's the classic build-up, and you're trying to peak the room. And just the energy that you get back from the room, and I mean, I've been a DJ that's played the smaller circuits of things. It's nothing what the two of these have played, but the addiction is exactly the same. I mean, I don't care if it's 14 people, if it's 14,000 people, or it's 104,000 people. The return of energy is why you're there. You do these things and you perform, and the musician or the composer writes the song, and it's the return of energy back from the crowd is what fuels it. And in our business, we have to be very careful to say that we're not in the business of selling downloads or selling digital content. I mean, that's absolutely not the business we're in. We're in the business of connecting or emotionally connecting people with the music. And it's a true phenomenon. I mean, even on our own website, we have this silly little technology that if you're not in the right territory for certain songs, you can't buy it. Because it might be licensed, right? It's annoying, right?
Frustrating.
But the emotional response you get, because now I've fallen in love with this music, and I want it. And now you're telling me I can't have it, and now I want it even more. and so we get it taught, So I think it's a complex.
So I think you're tapping into something that there's this demand for people.
It takes the right composer and the right performer and the right crowd and the right temperature, and maybe that is exactly the same as it always has been since prehistoric times, that it came this way, right. and it's just.
That's great.
I don't know how. I'm not phrasing it maybe the right way, but it's almost identical. I can go to any country, and I know what's going to happen.
It's universal.
Yeah, it's universal.
Which is back to your point in bringing universal messages through electronic music and building community around it. The teachings that you bring, I mean, that's kind of extraordinary that 70,000 people have tuned in to watch a Buddhist video, on YouTube. I mean, have you got any demographic data? Is it mostly kids that are tuning into that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're coming because it's Buddhist. I think they're just sort of curious about the theme. But I think, there's a lot of younger people, and then they bring their parents to it. But I think it's also kind of, there's also this curiosity, and I think, as we were talking with BT, in terms of there's kind of a need right now for people to, getting something out of music apart from just entertainment or just filling the void or sort of separating from the chaos of their life. They also look into music for some kind of guidance or something. And I think that's what I was curious, because I just put it on there. We did it kind of in an in-house situation, and it was almost like just an experiment to see who would listen to it.
So you're bringing these ideas to people, and in addition to having your monastic tradition, which you have the monasteries in Tibet and the monasteries in India, you have this, this Western, bringing teachings to
Sure.
Westerners. Is music something which you also play to people in the monasteries as well as as people out in the Western world?
On the day off, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like anywhere else. There's weekends, there's days off, and then people. I mean, I think a lot of people enter different kinds of music, and it's I think there's cultural music and there's modern music, and I think music is kind of universal, and people are into hip hop and things like this, and they don't really know necessarily what the cultural background is, but they are. I think because they want to connect to a bigger world, and they feel isolated, so connected to music, they feel like they're being brought out to a bigger world, and so that's part of their ability to extend themselves. But also, I think right now also there's a a quality where it is. I've noticed just in terms of the switch, in terms of people's consciousness, people are much more, East and West is much more amalgamated now and coming together. And I think music is a sort of international community, and that's how we're meeting. And so it's not necessarily bordered anymore. And that has a way of reaching people instantaneously without a lot of logic and reasoning. It's just kind of to the heart.
We're gonna have to wrap up pretty soon. I'm gonna allow for a couple questions from the audience, but first I want to ask the panel members. This is all something I've seen a lot of passion on the panel from each of you about this. Is there any personal experiences you want to share about something that's really helping to change the world in your mind, or helping to change your world more specifically? But is there an opportunity for music in these events that are happening out there now, such as Live Earth or the protests with the G8 summit, or things like this? Are these things useful in community? And do you have any experiences which sort of back up that idea or refute that idea?
Personally, yeah, I think that again, speaking to this issue of responsibility, and I get fixated on certain words. You got to forgive me, but this idea of music being one, I think we would all accept that music is powerful, and two, that music reaches many people, and three, I'd like to think that all of us accept that music should be about something, and engendering a sense of community, that those people are rallying around something of merit. And so I love the idea of music being used as a catalyst for a conversation, even about something. That's great. There's so many things. Somebody recently approached me about a benefit for Darfur, and there are benefits that revolve around incredibly significant and important social and humanitarian issues, and I think that those are the kind of things that we should all aspire to and hope to be involved in as performers and composers. And I know certainly as a daily part of my work and practice, on a personal level, a story that I told you guys before, and I'll share with them, to watch something that you've done impact people in a powerful way is one of the greatest experiences I've ever, and it brings such a tremendous amount of humility, because you think, how did I deserve to share this, and how did it come to be that it impacted people in a certain way? I played at the Hollywood Bowl, and we played my new album, which is also a film called This Binary Universe, and it's a very experimental, it's an art piece. It's 7 short films, all accompanied by music that's a mixture of classical, electronic music, and asymmetrical meter from jazz, and it's a real fusion of these styles and ideologies of music, and it's hard music to play. The last piece is a piece that I wrote for my now 3-year-old daughter, Kaya, and it's a piece about being a new father and loving your child. It's a really simple thing, and it's a piece without words, but I wrote a letter to Kaya, and we put those words in, little home movies of what her life has been up to now, and it's a difficult piece of music to perform. It's in 5/4, so I have to really kind of go inward, and I was there and I was counting and really trying to plug into what made me write that piece of music in the first place, and I really forgot about the 11,000 people in front of us, myself and my band, watching, and in the middle of the performance, I looked up and I saw all of these faces, and they weren't looking at us. None of them, not a single face in the entire audience was looking at us. They were looking above us on the screen, and they were reading the words, and they were watching the images, and there were people openly weeping in the audience. And I thought, if this is all I ever get, this is enough.
That's great. How about you, Theresa? Have you had any experiences, either DJing or performing that you just think back?
No, Jerry, I just think it's about, for many artists, I don't know, for me, I just wanted to be loved. So it's like you go out there, you do it, and you just get loved back. And it's addictive, because it's like, it's the best joy in the world to give to someone else. And it really is, and that's it. It's very simple.
Maybe that's the message.
That really is, for me, the message, and definitely one that I am new to and learning, and grateful to have had great people around me showing me this wonderful thing, because a lot of artists can get a little self-absorbed, and it's, once you get to a point where you realize that what is inside needs to come out, and not worry about how great you are at it, just do it, and that's a cool thing to impart. So for me, it's just, as Brian's song, Simply Being Loved, it really is about that. It's a driving thing. People want to be connected. We all want to belong to something. People want to be led. We want to belong to something. That's what it means to me.
And Rinpoche, could you kind of wrap up for us the sort of, I mean, obviously, what you're doing with these 150 meditation centers, with the monasteries, there's obviously a huge purpose in everything you do. And so with happening, even though this was an experiment to do these music videos, there is a purpose, and it may have been an extension of your books or something, but you're creating community on the web now because of this. 70,000 people in just a few weeks seeing this video, is something happening. So,
well, I mean, it started actually for me just to have fun, and when I did this recording, I didn't want it to be something serious. I just wanted a way to express the spoken word, and so for myself, it was trying to enjoy and relax into that. And then, it's had. And the words that have come about have been sort of things that I felt were simple and important. And there was, I remember one person saying that many people ask me to talk to their kids, and I saying, if I talk to the kids the way you want me to, they're not going to listen. There has to be other ways of communicating. And so one of them,
a lot of parents would agree with this.
And they said, tell them to do this or tell them to meditate. And I said, that doesn't work. They have to come to whatever it is on their own. And so anyway, I had the CD, and one of the parents their kid had been playing their favorite CD on their way home, and then they gave them my CD, and they said, I hope they listen to this. So you can't force it, but after a while they picked it up and listened to it, and then they listened to it incessantly. And they listened to it so much that the parent got sick of it, and said, all right, I wanted to take it out of there. So it was interesting seeing the whole thing, because the message had come from, I guess, a point of view, because it was music, then it was sort of a message like that is cool. It's something they can communicate as opposed to something being serious. And so, whatever way it gets there.
That's great, thank you. We only have time for one or two questions. Is there anybody in the audience with a question for the panels or about their experiences or anything? We'll wrap up. Okay.
When I think about community and music, a lot of times I think of websites that are based around sharing music that isn't always legal. How do you guys feel about piracy in general?
That's about piracy to this group?
I'm happy to answer that.
But when you see someone sharing their music and it isn't paid for, I mean, does that make you guys really infuriated, or is it just frustrating?
Well, I think Theresa, and maybe you and BT, and Jonas obviously is going to have a point of view since he sells music. But
I'll just be quick then, because I think Brian has that. But you know what? It's a bit of both. Sometimes it's like we got to make a living, right? But at the same time, people have discovered your music. Back in my day, it was pirate radio station, and the sales were huge because of it. Everybody got your track, and so therefore everyone came to your show. And one thing I believe is that there are bad things about it, but you can't download personality. So, if you can get the music to people, it's all about sharing music and a vibe. But it is a fine line, definitely.
I just want to kind of frame it personally. It's really simple. It impacts our ability to make music. And every artist that you like, it impacts their ability to make music. And so for me, if you ask me, have I ever downloaded something illegally? Yes, hundreds of times. And what I do if I like it is I go buy it, because I respect the artist enough to do that. So.
And Rinpoche, you're giving your music away. So you're hoping everyone steals it, right? Jonas?
Well, we have obviously I guess a retailer's mentality. But I want to talk about it from a marketing point of view, because I think that's fair. I think a lot of trends start free, to be honest with you. And I think it's a very natural way to discover. And I think the internet is, and the communities out there are wisening up to this trend, and that if you can't beat them, join them. Let's make it easier. Let's control it. And those communities are exploding because you've embraced a culture that's already existing, instead of, to your point, you can't tell people don't do it because they just don't listen. They have to make an internal decision that they're going to participate naturally in the way they want to. And for Beatport, we have a policy within the company that all the staff has to pay for the music, because we have a culture that says if we don't pay for it, why would we expect anybody else to?
Of course, it's changing now, right? I mean, the world's changing where you as artists are getting closer to the audience. We have the decline of the record labels in a big way, and so now there's lots of little labels where there's going to be new ways to go more direct, right? And so there may be a point where you give away some of your music in order to build your audience, and then.
I mean, that's what that's what I'm doing. I'm giving away because, like Jonas said, they're going to do it anyway. But it does impact. But it's a difficult thing.
It all comes down to respect, and I think you said it best. At some point, you have to decide. You have to make an internal decision that you want to participate. I guess, as much as you can in the trend that you're being involved in.
Or you're helping to kill it.
Right. Well, listen, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.